Hi, my name is Drew Lang and I'm here to answer all your real estate questions. Question number 1 says, how much money do I actually need to buy a house? Now, this is a funny thing because it kind of depends on where you're at in life. If you've never bought a house before, there are programs that may allow you to buy a house for as little as 3.5%. FHA, sometimes even VA loans can let you buy with 0% down. But it also depends on your financial position and what type of house you can actually afford. If you make $100,000 in a year, you can't afford a $3 million house unless you happen to have that in cash randomly on the side. So to answer the question, if you've never bought a house before, you could need as low as 3.5% of the house value as a down payment, but it also depends on the type of house that you're buying, where you're buying, and all the other stuff. Question number 2, do I really need a realtor to buy a house? Well, theoretically, no, you don't. With the advent of Zillow, Realtor.com, and some of these other websites, you could theoretically find a house that you want, go through the process, and buy it on your own. In fact, there is an entire market called FSBO, for sale by owner, of people that want to sell their house without the use of a realtor. While that can be done, usually about 90% of all FSBOs sell their house using a realtor after trying to do it by themselves for a while. And the bigger question would be, why? I think a lot of the reasons why people tend to choose a realtor is this is one of the biggest purchasing decisions in your life. You want to make sure that you are making a good and accurate purchase. And the benefit of having a realtor is actually that you gain some emotional detachment. When it's your house and you're buying it or you're selling it, any offer can sometimes be considered an attack because it may be less of what you want. Having that third party to kind of negotiate some of that and to be a springboard of your ideas and opinions can really help you a lot. Not only that, but a good realtor's job is also to tell you that a house is actually a bad investment or a bad purchase. So yes, you can buy a house without a realtor, but there's a lot of situations where a realtor's expertise could actually help you. And the amount that you would pay them, you're actually getting back in either a better house or more value from the house that you're getting. Okay, question number 3. What are closing costs and who pays for them? So this is a little bit of an interesting quirk. When it comes to purchasing a house, especially if you are using a loan to buy the house, there will be certain taxes that will be needed to be paid in order to commission the loan. These would be document stamp tax and other things like that. There's also fees to get the title correct, the insurance, all these little things do need to be paid for. And usually the person that is purchasing the house pays for it. Now, in some circumstances, you could have a seller put in some money to purchase for the closing costs, and some builders will pay all closing costs just because they want to get you in the house. But at the end of the day, closing costs are the final things that you pay for to help ratify the deal. And generally the buyer would be the one that would be paying for that. All right, question number 4. Is it a buyer's market or a seller's market right now? I personally hate this question for a few reasons. First off, if you are selling your house and then buying another one, you're interacting with both sides of the market. So theoretically, you'll be interacting with the buyer's market when you sell a house and also when you buy a house. You're getting the pros and cons of both sides. Not only that, but in my current area, Southwest Florida, you could have 2 different markets in the same town. What do I mean? Well, for example, currently right now, our single family houses are in a mixed market where it's not a buyer or a seller. It's quite even. Yet our condo market is a heavily buyer's market. So just saying general things like, oh, the market is a buyer's market or a seller's market, or it's good and bad, doesn't really tell the full story. And sometimes a person may want a bad market because it's actually better for their situation. So with anything like this, if you have any questions, you should talk to a local realtor because they'd be able to give you more accurate information than just a general idea of what the market's at. Question number 5. What is earnest money and do I get it back? Okay, so generally if you are interested in a house, you will put in an offer, and in part of that offer, you're putting a certain amount of money down into an escrow account, and that is called earnest money. There is no set amount of how much that you should put in, but it should be enough to communicate a desire to have this house. If someone gets 2 offers simultaneously for the same amount and one has $5,000 in earnest money and one has $25,000 in earnest money, the seller is more likely going to choose the $25,000 because it signifies that that person is more committed to getting the house. Now, what can often happen is if someone puts in an offer, they put in earnest money and the offer gets rejected or they remove it later, who controls the money? And technically, the title company controls the money. In order for the buyer to get the money back, both people, the buyer and the seller, have to come together and make a written agreement saying that that is how it is. Or they have to go to court. Earnest money is one of those things that is kind of complicated, especially when it comes to disputes on earnest money. So if you do have any more questions or you want more accurate information, you should definitely talk to a realtor or more specifically a title agent, since they tend to handle that type of stuff. Question number 6, how do I know what my house is actually worth? Okay, this is a fun one because theoretically, realtors don't actually determine the value of the house. They look at the market, and the market determines the value of the house. And that makes it difficult because the market is in flux. It goes up and down many times in the year, in a time span of a decade. It's constantly changing. And there's a lot of external factors that factor into a price. For example, you could have 10 houses that are all worth $1 million on a road. So if you're trying to sell your house for $1 million and it's worth $1 million, you may want to price it at $990,000 because you're going to stand out more because of the market. So it's kind of hard to say. Generally, you can do comparables and see houses that are pretty close to yours sold around the same month or two in a very small radius, but even that can be kind of tricky because it doesn't always tell the full story. Just know that a great realtor will not only explain what they think you will get from the market, but also a good pricing strategy and why they're doing what they're doing. Question number 7, what upgrades actually add value before selling? This is another fun question. Living in Southwest Florida, a lot of people come in and buy a house and then throw a bunch of upgrades in it because they want a new kitchen or they want a new dining room. And then the amount of money that they put in is not how much they get back. And there's a few questions for why. There's a difference between putting money into a house to fix something or making an improvement versus doing it because that's actually what you want and you would like it. Most people, when they make improvements to the house, they're not doing it out of resale value. They're doing it because they want a nicer kitchen or they want an island for it. So you have to understand before you make an improvement that you may not actually get the value out of that improvement. And nor should you care in a sense. I mean, you're making the improvement to the house for your own benefit. If you're making the improvement for your benefit, then necessarily does it really matter if you may get a couple thousand more or less. I can tell you as a general rule of thumb that if you're upgrading something because it's broken or it needs to be fixed, you will tend to get more value out of it than just a quality of life upgrade. Question number something, I actually kind of forgot what question we're at. How do realtors get paid? This is fun. So realtors generally get a commission based off of the sale or a purchase of a house. Could be 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, kind of depends on the realtor. All this is negotiable ahead of time. So if you have a realtor that you like and they offer their fee at 3% and you don't like that, you could negotiate. Now they could also negotiate and say no. At the end of the day, if you're working with a good, competent realtor, the extra small percentages that you would be paying for them might actually be value that you're getting because they may prevent you from making a bad purchase or help you get more out of your negotiations. So the money that you're paying for a realtor may actually be cheaper than the mistakes that you would make for not paying for a realtor. And truthfully, some realtors are going to be more expensive, but also some realtors are better. You know, if someone is better, they should be paid more. Another thing to consider is that if a realtor works with someone for a long time and they're showing them houses, but that person never actually buys a house, that realtor doesn't get paid for that transaction. They may have put in a couple months worth of work and I got nothing out of it. And even the fast deals where someone walks in and says, I want to buy this house across the street, it still takes time and a lot of expertise to prepare contracts, to make sure that everything's written down, because a small mistake can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in some of these transactions. So realtors get paid at the end of the transaction when it's done, and generally it is worth it. It is negotiable, but a good realtor is worth whatever fee that you're paying. In Florida, is flood insurance required, and how much does it cost? The flood insurance question. Okay, where I live in Southwest Florida, there are different zones of flood insurance to different levels. For example, I lived through Hurricane Ian, which was a massive time. We haven't had a hurricane that big in this area in a very long time, and half of my town was extremely flooded from the storm surge. But not all of it, because there's different zones. You know, we have different evacuation zones in town, which determine how much storm surge you're going to get, and that also determines how much you're going to have to pay for insurance. Insurance is one of those things in Florida that is a constant form of life. You will have to probably pay for it unless you get a brand new house that is above a certain elevation, or you're just in a very good area that doesn't really get flooding. But just know that it's a fact of life usually. And a lot of Florida is just going to be a flood zone. I will say though, the closer that you are to the beach, generally your flood insurance premiums will be higher because there's a higher likelihood that you will flood. Next question, is Cape Coral a good place to invest right now? Okay, so I can take investment in one of two ways. Are we talking about investing your family and building a life here, buying something and flipping it, or just holding property for a long time? Generally, when it comes to real estate, over time it will appreciate about 4%. So usually, if you buy a house, as long as nothing catastrophic happens, on average, if you hold it for at least 20 years, you will get more than what you put back into the house. There's a lot of other factors that come into it. When it comes to Cape Coral, it's a growing town. It's grown a lot in the last 5 to 10 years. It's not as great of an investment as it was in the 1960s when land was cheap because no one was here, but generally with all investing, if you hold on to it over time, you will make something back. If you're thinking about investing and you like Cape Coral, just go out there, look for something, and if you find the right one, pull the trigger if you have the money for it. All right, next question. What happens if the appraisal comes in low? Okay, this is a fun one. A good realtor is going to be emotionless towards the actual purchase of the house. They may be there emotionally for you to understand and walk you through the process, but they're supposed to be kind of beyond the emotions of selling the house. So a good one will prep you on the fact that maybe your house isn't worth what you think it is. If you thought that your house is going to sell for this much and it turns out that the appraisal is this much, you have a couple options. The first one and most important one to ask is, do you need to sell? Prices appreciate over time generally. So if you don't need to sell right now and you want more money out of your house, just wait a bit longer. Second option is to listen to what the market tells you and to price it what the appraisal comes as. Probably the worst thing that you can do is ignore the advice of the appraisal and just put it out there overpriced. The average buyer wants to get the most money out of their house. So if they're working with a good realtor, they will probably be told that they're overpaying for your house specifically. You also get less offers in because people don't want to put an offer on a house that's extremely overpriced. But more importantly, you're going through the emotional hassle on something that you're not ready for. I once worked with someone who thought that their house was worth $400,000 and their house had a lot of damage with it. It needed a lot of fixing. But even if it was fully brought up to date, it'd be worth $350 at the most, more likely $325. And they were unwilling to change it because what they wanted is $400,000. And that's fine. What they had to understand is in order for them to hit that mark, they're gonna have to wait 5 or 10 years when the market appreciates more, and then their house will officially be worth $400,000. At the end of the day, do you need to sell your house right now? And if you do, then I think it's worth more to just take the loss and to sell it for what it's worth now than to try and force it, because the longer it's on the market, the harder it's going to be to sell. All right, that's all the time that we have for today. If you have more questions, put them in the comments. Let me know, and maybe I'll answer them next time. Thanks. Peace.